Hello friends, I'm Jade. Welcome back to episode 6 of Training the Commander. Previously, we talked about how to break down an encounter to the basics and then build it back up. We've covered a lot of things so far, but we're still only at the tip of the iceberg. We've so much more to explore with the fundamentals, and we still have yet to explore each encounter. Over time, you will develop your own style of training, which is to be expected and encouraged. However, the basics need to still be taught and the standard still has to be met. However you choose to train your group, your goal should be at the least to get them up to par with the wipe standard, so that your raiders will be well enough equipped to dive headfirst into more competitive and newer content. Now, in all my previous videos, I've discussed what needs to be done and some of what you should do, but we'll constantly find new methods and tricks to still achieve the same results in the end, and that is what brings this video to the forefront. It's time to talk about the how. I consider myself very privileged to have met many brilliant individuals who have years of experience in this game that have shared techniques that have worked for them in the past. I try to surround myself with people that are constantly sharing and learning, since that's the best way that we can continue to improve. I'll share some of my favourite tips and tricks to further improve your raid training experience. First off, I want to talk about establishing a rapport. Now, it's you and potentially 9 other strangers choosing to get together to try and rush an objective. This is the first impression you'll make with your trainees, and it's important that you set the tone for what kind of a training group you'll be running. I like to resort to the classic icebreaker. Have each trainee introduce themselves and then have them share something random. It could be anything: a favourite candy, a movie, a type of music, or even what class they like to play the most often in game. The goal is to establish with your group that communication is encouraged and preferred. Get creative, add your own flair, and have fun with it. Depending on the group, this portion can go on for a bit. The next technique I want to talk about is the no weapons training method. This method is one that I found to be a total game changer. Although it may not be as impactful in groups that have some prior experience on an encounter, it has been positively received by newer groups. I've noticed that sometimes when I would explain the mechanic, that some people would not still get it. It's often recommended to eliminate all distractions so that you can focus on the content you're trying to learn. Oftentimes, we get so dialed in on our rotations that we forget to actually take notice of the mechanics when they happen. This is why this method is so effective, because it eliminates all distractions and forces the trainees to pay attention only to the mechanics and how to manage them. Once you feel that each trainee has a solid grasp on the mechanics, you can then restore their weapons and see how they do then. In order to properly execute this technique, you must ask everyone to remove their weapons and instruct them that damaging the boss isn't part of the objective at all. You'll want to be able to keep them alive while they pull without any weapons, so I usually will allow the designated healer to retain their weapons for healing purposes, and then I'll play a full Magi's Tempest or a Heal Scourge so that I can guarantee that everyone can survive long enough to get some meaningful practice on the mechanics. When it comes to commanding, I usually suggest to have a Heal Scourge or a Tempest and an HB or a Druid in your pocket so that you can easily switch to one of those for this purpose. Otherwise, you can bring a Lieutenant along that can be your second healer during this time. The weaponless training at first will seem very bizarre to the group, but after a few pulls, you'll start seeing some incredible results. If you notice 1 or 2 members are struggling, after you've restored their weapons, then feel free to take their weapons back and have them focus on only the mechanics that they're failing. Constantly get confirmation from the group on whether they feel comfortable with the mechanics before choosing to move on. Alright, this one is a technique that I picked up from a fellow guildie of mine, and I call it fun consequences. Keeping people focused for an entire 2-hour training session can be challenging. We have found that implementing fun techniques to keep everyone engaged while at the same time promoting team synergy is a win-win for everyone. Sometimes I jokingly will impose a consequence for failing a certain mechanic, such as telling the trainees they'll owe a fail tax by having them share a unique fact about themselves or an embarrassing story. This one has been very positively received because it serves as a great pressure diffuser and it also promotes team bonding. The stories get people laughing and having a good time, and it is in that moment that we know that we did a great job. Now here's a concept: wrap up, review, and goal setting. Okay, one of the problems we see develop over time as the groups continue to progress is that some members that end up doing the same thing over and over will start to feel undervalued. Usually this is present in the DPS roles. People that take the opportunities to learn specialty roles will oftentimes receive lots of recognition and attention from the group and the commander, and the DPS will be left doing exactly what they've been doing for the last 20 pulls or so. These players will eventually phase out and look for other opportunities somewhere else, where they can start feeling valued and a new sense of challenge. This is why I like to spend some time at the end of my training sessions to go over the session and evaluate everyone's individual performance. I make sure to recognize positive improvement that I identified during the run. I'll identify the areas that individuals need to work on before the next session. I found that setting goals for my trainees to work on between sessions helps reinforce the idea that they are all individually valued as members of the team and their contributions matter. So this next technique is a really good one to help you get through very long and monotonous trainings, and it's called creating competitions within a training. There are a few opportunities where you can implement games within your trainings to shake it up and breathe some new life into a long, tiring journey. I like to do this on encounters that have specialty roles that are repetitive to learn, such as Greens on Doom or Q1 kiting. You can come up with your own games, but one that I like to do that has yielded great results is the Doom Green Capping Contest. The purpose of this game is to teach everyone how to do greens and have them reach a point where they can successfully cap 9 out of 10 greens. I'll usually split the groups into 2 subgroups of 4 and have them switch off every pull so that each sub has a chance to cap the greens in the pre-phase. You can be teaching someone else to kite at the same time. Every pull you can record who lived and who died doing greens until everyone has completed 10 pulls as a green. This may seem very repetitive, but when you look at the benefits of having your members doing greens reliably and managing that mechanic, as well as mastering the pre-phase, you'll wish you had learned Doom the same way. Now let's talk about squad markers. So if you've got yourself a commander tag and haven't found out how to effectively utilize your squad markers, then you're simply doing yourself a disservice. Squad markers are a valuable tool that you can use to draw attention to places that you want people to position at or during an encounter. I highly suggest binding your X marker to a simple keybind that you can drop on the fly to help give directions. I'll use my X marker to mark the next stacking position, since the commander tag can sometimes get lost in the clutter. You also will be able to mark players and targets to ensure that people know who to stack on in different places and which targets to target. The next method I want to talk about is focus groups. So a while back, our guild hosted a 5-man Karen raid contest. One of the takeaways we got from that event was how much simpler that encounter was when you reduce the body count. With less bodies to worry about and less visual noise, it is easier for people to start noticing very important mechanics. I'll usually use this technique when I'm doing the no weapon strategy. I pay close attention to how each trainee is adapting the mechanics. If I notice a few trainees are struggling more than others, I'll take them into the encounter as a smaller group, that way I can pay closer attention to them. This has helped bring trainees that perform at a much lower level than their teammates to catch up. This also reinforces the no carry mentality that we teach in the guild. We care about each trainee's progress and want to make sure we take every step we can to ensure that they can succeed. This next method is one that I've developed and used effectively in my own trainings, and I like to call it relieving the pressure. Now, you might have heard the term to speak into existence. Well, you might be surprised as to how you can effectively apply that here, and I'm not talking about the casual, you got this guys, or the okay, this is going to be the one. I'm talking about things you can say that will have a more impactful effect. For instance, when I train a raid, I always make sure to clarify what the objective for each pull is. It could be the same as the last 3, but it has to be reminded often. However, I always use this phrase intentionally for a few reasons. I will or will not let you guys get the kill. This simple phrase can have a major impact on your session because number 1, it eliminates the expectation that the group may get a one-shot kill. This means that the trainees can put all of that thought out of their mind and direct their full focus on the objective first. The second reason is that it eliminates the questions like, are we good enough to kill? Or, what's holding us back? These are problematic thoughts that we want to avoid because they often go hand in hand with trainees blaming each other or thinking that they need to overcompensate to get the kill since the others don't seem to be pulling their weight. The last technique I want to talk about is the kill order. This is basically a flowchart for beating raids, or a point A to point B approach. This technique is a very good way to either preface or sum up an encounter quickly, and is a great system to base your objective on. Regardless of what type of an explanation I give, it's important that each trainee knows what are the steps they need to take in order to earn the kill. Most often, starting from the point A and working to point B is the best approach. However, in some cases, it works to start from the end and break it down from there. So it looks something like this. We want to end up here, final step. In order to do that, we must do this, step 3. In order to complete that, we must do this, step 2. But we can't do that until we do this, step 1. This is really helpful for encounters that have lots of steps and phases. For instance, you can take Sabbatha. The goal is to kill Sabbatha. That's the final step. In order to do that, we need to kill her before the platform dies, step 3. In order to keep the platform alive long enough for us to kill her, we need to kill cannons and keep bombs on the platform, keep bombs off the platform. Step 2. In order to do that, we will designate a couple of members to kill the cannons and have a flak hider focus on kicking the time bombs off the platform. You might naturally already use some of these methods in your own trainings, and some of you might not. If you can see any of these techniques working for you, then I encourage you to try them out. I've led many training runs and utilised all of these effectively and have pulled some really great results. Remember, your job as a training commander is to first ensure that everyone is enjoying the experience. We want the raid community that we build to be filled with strong, passionate raiders who actually want to play the game for the content and not just the reward. You can play an integral role in that mission by creating and maintaining the environment to home these new raiders. So we are counting on all of you to make it work. So what's next from here? Well, now that we've learned all the ins and outs of being a commander, it's time to put it into practice. This video series will shift from training the commander to training the encounter, so stay tuned for that. And as always, if you're finding this content helpful, then don't forget to subscribe and drop a like. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.